Okay, so we call to order the first meeting of the 21-25 Coastal Resiliency and Restoration Committee. Today is September 9th, 2024. If we could stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Linda Rodriguez. Present. Carl Roth. Here. Chris Leeds. Here. Ron Padova.
Here.
Alan Rose.
Here.
Devin Aaron.
Here.
And Daryl Rose. And let the record show that Daryl Rose is absent from today's meeting. So the first order of business for you guys is organization and nomination of committee members. So if you could have a nomination for a chair, you guys can discuss or nominate, whichever you prefer.
I think Carl looks like a nice volunteer.
Carl's definitely the guy.
Run away, but you still get
So is there a nomination for Carl?
I nominate Carl.
I second.
Okay, so Chris nominated and Devin seconded. All approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Motion passes. All right, Carl, take the lead.
Okay, so we need a vice chair.
Yep.
Anybody feeling dynamics? Chris interested?
Yep.
Have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have two folks.
Congratulations.
Okay. So, what's next on the agenda?
Next is your discussion on the development of the 21-25 Coastal Resilience and Restoration Committee. So, I don't know.
So congratulations, everyone. I think you're at the start of, I think, a very important initiative by the city. I know it's something that City Council has a lot of belief that this committee is important as we look over the next 100 years on developing a plan to make us resilient, protect our coastline, which is probably one of the biggest assets that the city of Port Richey has. Look at improving the quality of the waters that flow in and through the city, and deal with some of the issues that come from the rising sea that are impacting, again, the shorelines, the habitats, and the personal property of a lot of Port Richey residents. I don't know, in the packet, we included the resolution with that.
So that
Yeah,
all of that's getting put
Okay.
on the
And so,
page.
yeah, so one of the things that we're doing is we're creating a web page that's going to have like all the. One of the issues is the things that I normally would be doing for a committee like this, I can't do because of the sunshine laws here in Florida. Obviously, you guys can't communicate with each other outside of this meeting related to business that would be coming before you as the 21-25 Commission. And we have a challenge of a lot of very large documents. For instance, one of the documents is the city's adaptation plan and analysis that shows what all the different risks are for the city related to the environment. That's, I want to say it's over 30 megabytes, so I can't send that to you. And so, but you need to have it. Because again, I think it's something that you're going to want to look at and say, okay, here's a starting point that we can start moving forward with. And so our thought was that we put it on the website, creating this page will be on the website with other important documents that again will allow you to see the starting point. I don't know if you're paper-based or more computer-based. If you're paper-based, let us know. We'll produce those copies for you. If you're not paper-based, we thought this would be the best way to provide those documents, not only for you, but also for the residents. Because again, I think this is something that hopefully as you move along. So tonight really was going to be a conversation on where do you go from here? What are the things that you think when you first got told that you were on the 21-25 committee? What came to mind? What did you think that you were going to do? And start laying out then what does that look like in practice? Is there information you want to see? Are there documents you want to see? Are there people you want to get in here to talk to? We've made contact with, for instance, the Resiliency Office of Pasco County, and I think at some point getting those individuals from the resiliency county resiliency would be very beneficial to hear what they're doing. For instance, they're doing. We're kind of ahead of them at this point in doing those analysis that we've already done, and they're working right now on their adaptation plan. But their adaptation plan covers the city of Port Richey, and so we want to make sure that what we put in ours, our mitigations and everything that we're looking to do, they have in theirs as well. And again, there's things that they find very interesting that came out of those studies that they also want to take up, so we can actually have two jurisdictions working together to try to get funding for that. So I think a lot of that. They also found it very interesting, our desires on trying to get an understanding of the quality of the water here in the city. And so they have ideas that could be beneficial in context. It could be beneficial for us to get in contact with. So again, that's an example of people, individuals, groups, other levels of governments you might want to think about bringing in. And that's what we're here for. Tell us what you want, and we'll get it delivered to you.
Questions?
Yes.
Ken?
Carl, do you mind turning on your mic? Thanks, sir.
Mr. Koppler, can you kind of explain, at least for my benefit and probably maybe the others as well, a committee? What exactly is that? What is it empowered to do? You've mentioned that there's documentation that we're going to see, but I guess from at least a personal standpoint, what's the flight envelope mean? Because in the government arena, I'm not that familiar with it. So could you enlighten us a little bit on that?
Well, let me take a stab at that. If I don't get into that flight envelope, you let me know, and I'll try it again. Maybe starting back to why a committee? Why isn't this just employees of the city trying to carry this out? Committees are important within the governmental organization because it provides that interface with residents. You yourselves mostly are residents, and you have that connection point with people, knowing what they're saying, know what they're thinking, also have an ability to communicate with them what you're going to be doing, right? So committees are important because it gives the city an opportunity to interface again with residents at a different level than just the city manager out there with a PowerPoint presentation saying, here's what we're working on. A second part is that from the standpoint of trying to figure out what we should be doing as a city, a committee is something that reports back to city council. So city council is not sitting there making those decisions or what the plan is. It's a committee of residents that, again, have taken the time to dive deep into whatever the topic is that they've been asked to do as an ad hoc committee and provide reports, action plans, and to a certain degree actually do some of the legwork, I should say, because getting people in here to talk and finding out what are their interests and what should we be doing has been very successful across the United States with committees of residents going out there and starting to engage that. And so that's really the benefit of a committee in this respect, where you are going to be guiding and making recommendations ultimately to the city council on what they should be focusing on as it relates to coastal resiliency and the waterways, water quality issues. So they don't have to take the time to do that heavy lifting to get there.
So recommendations, those types of things. but as far as that's really the council is really our charge. Is advisory to the council.
Correct.
Carl, you can keep your mic.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to nag you
We'll-
just so you know.
We'll get you trained on that.
So it's really advisory to the council as far as that goes. And then externally, are there things that we need to be aware of or consider? If that's our reporting charge, if you will, externally, what are boundaries or limits or that part of the flight envelope?
So maybe clarity on what you say, what you're referring to as boundaries, what you can or can't do, or okay. Wanted to make sure it's
Yes.
So, you know, I think there's a lot of ability for this committee to do exploration outside of the committee individually, right? So, you know, you could be making calls and talking to some of those officials or other cities, other organizations that have done things that are in line with what it is you're going to be talking about. You know, for instance, we attended the what was that? Yes, resiliency. I forgot that. And there was a number of communities that are doing some really cool things out there, right? That again, we should probably be looking at and talking about. You know, you could easily assign individuals here to make those connections and maybe find out more and come back to the committee and, you know, provide a report on what they're doing, how that, you know, could fit into anything that you want to ultimately recommend to the council for the future for the city. The difficulty in this, I'll tell you, for me at least, the difficulty in this is that you know, you do get a lot more word I'm using. Sunshine Law here is a great thing. Don't get me wrong. Very important. But I've seen committees like this in other states where they don't have that barrier where 2 or 3 people get together and they can work and, you know, kind of like do their projects together. We don't have that luxury here where, you know, you can't get together in more than one. And so you are going to be relying upon staff to do a little bit more of the teamwork that you would normally do. So it can be prepped for these meetings where you'd be able to do that type of
I
teamwork.
understand that. We can only do one. Can we do more? Like, let's say we realize that we get going here. We understand where we want to go at. Some of us retired, others not. But we have more convenience, and some of us can meet, and we could have ad hoc meetings so that we see something we want to grab onto, and we want to take action, and we want to bring it to the city. And we want to see action, and can we progress at a faster pace than say once a month?
Again, I think as an individual, so the actions of the committee are represented by the majority opinion of the committee. So what you can't do is have 1 or 2 people saying we want to do this, right? It has to be something that comes through the committee. The committee can have subcommittees if you want, but understand subcommittees have to be the same way. They have to be open to the public. They have to be in a convenient location. It has to be announced. So you have to do that. You know, you couldn't say, hey, you know, 2 people are going to get together. We're going to talk about this. Well, you could, but you have to let us know when, where, most likely here. You're going to do that so we can notice that, so the public's aware of that meeting going on. Again, that's kind of the hindrance, I think, in this is that there may be a little bit more that could be done, but, you know, in doing it in a public environment kind of slows it down a little bit.
How much time do you need for?
Well, we would prefer at least 24 hours. We would prefer at least, you know, probably 36 more hours, but you know, at a minimum 24 hours to be able to do that.
Just for complete clarity on that topic, if I wanted to go talk to Mark Bellis at Pasco County, you know, and have a conversation, I would need to go have that conversation with him or his team by myself.
Yeah.
It would not be, I couldn't take Carl with me, right,
Correct.
at that point. Then at that point, if that's the structure of it, right, where I want to have Alan and Carl there, right?
Mhm.
Then at that point, I would schedule them to come here,
Yep.
right? And we would have an
Yes.
organized meeting around
Absolutely.
them participating and speaking to us,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, okay.
And they're very aware of this committee.
Right.
And I've already said they should expect an invitation very shortly. So
Right. Yeah. That would, I would think that's first stop.
Yeah.
Now that the red tape part is over,
I got a question. Does this work alongside the Port Authority Board, or is the Port Authority Board now part of this and it's all combined in?
So the Port Authority Board is still separate from everything else. I mean, it's its own entity within the city government. The Port Authority is the core of this committee, obviously. And so, again, what the rules are for this committee are the same rules for the Port Authority. And I would expect that there's going to be an overlap in things that you want to do here and as the Port Authority. I mean, there may be some things that are different, I understand, but I assume there's going to be some overlap. And so I think easily the Port Authority could be its own work group for this as well, if you so wanted to do that. But it probably would make much sense unless it's something that really is tangential to the resiliency efforts, primarily for the Port Authority, very little for the resiliency. But yeah, Port Authority is still a separate entity from this.
I'm just reading down the list here. A lot of the things that are on here is what the Port Authority's been working on for
Right.
10, 15 years.
We have an environmental component, but the public safety component, I would say, is completely autonomous
Right.
from anything here. But the environmental component certainly is a key cornerstone of that. So, all right, I think that will suffice for everyone on as far as what our boundaries are and such. As far as good stuff.
If anytime you have a question, let us know, and we'll be able to provide where those boundaries are. If it's
I have one. I'm going to be working with the county on waterways outside of the city. Can I do that?
I'll just put it on the record now, as far as multiple council members, commission members attend the same meetings. So, that are not announced. And I would be curious to know what kind of latitude we could have in that for, say, Chris's example here, or any others for that matter, is if there is a lead on that and an observer on that, as long as my understanding is there's not communications between them, discussion between them, it's a non-issue. So I think to be as effective as possible, and where sometimes more than 2 years are a good thing, I would seek some latitude in that arena.
just as right now, as we're sitting here, there are more than 2 council members sitting in this room. It's not a meeting. They're not participating together or doing anything that would violate the Sunshine Law. You could go. He has a meeting on the county. If you have a meeting on resiliency, right? You could all attend that. What would be the issue is if you're both you're sitting in there and that's a great idea. We should be doing this, right? That's kind of that barrier line. Now, obviously, it's something that you would have to kind of do your self-reporting on, I guess. Understand that there is a limit to what you can do. You can say, hey, really like what you're doing with your boat. We can talk about that. But anything that might be coming in front of this committee, you wouldn't be able to talk.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other items on that note from anyone? Okay. Well, let's. What was the next? You wanted help me on the agenda here as far as what we want to do.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the next step is to create that vision moving forward. Where do you see, what is it you want to take up? Understanding that you've been given a very large canvas to put a picture on, right? But the reality is that you're not going to be able to paint the full picture in one meeting or maybe even in a year. But you need a place to start. You need a vision for where you're going to end.
Okay. Well, why don't we do, let me suggest this. Why don't we all take like 2 or 3 minutes, and if Ashley can help us with the timer to keep us honest, let's do it 3 minutes as far as getting each other's thoughts as far as what you think might be a path we could take. And that way we all get a chance to kind of put ideas on the table. We've got 6 of us, 18 minutes, which I don't think is too bad, since we're kind of open here on the agenda anyway. And so what would be your priorities? What would you like to see? Let's do that, and then we'll quickly open it up to the audience for maybe 2 minutes to see what inputs are there, so we can kind of get a collective reading across the board, and then we can kind of have some discussion around that if that seems to work with everybody. Sounds good? Okay. Devin, you want to start?
Sure. I think that a lot of the issues that we're running into is just a kind of a runaway regulation thing that kind of occurred where we can't really do much. That's why, it's like funny. That's why the first start of the meeting here is we're talking about red tape, because we really can't do much. It's because it's all red tape, unfortunately. And but I did approach the DEP to speak with them about dredging my canal, doing it myself, with some of my equipment and stuff like that. And there's a lot of ineptitudes, things like that to deal with. It depends on who you get. Very difficult to navigate that. But one thing that came about was the city has had a permit done back. When was that? And it just expired for the dredging. We had it all.
It started like 10 years ago.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But we had that going, but the topographicals where actually shows the cross sections, that's what they want for your permit. So we should have some kind of a database like this website that puts everything on there. So when a guy like me, even privately, wants to go do that, they can piggyback off of that permit and use that instead of having to go out and get another guy in there to stick a mud stick in there and get a level and all that kind of stuff. So I think that would probably be a good thing to just compile all the information into one central location for everybody to get. And also too, I've really realized with all the rain and spending some time in the river lately, how much sediment comes off Pasco County and channels right into Miller's Bayou, because it's like a curve and it just shoots right in there. It seems that way anyways. Like that canal where the guy's seawall's coming in, falling down because there's so much water going through there. That's another huge issue. But those are owned by Pasco County, so somebody needs to be kind of paying for this and helping out. And we don't really have the funds, but I think maybe we take a little bit of seed money and maybe lobby or do something like that, because there's no way we're going to take $200,000, $300,000, even $400,000 and really do much with that. We need to, use that money to try to catalyze a bigger effort from state, or even Pasco County or federal. So that's really, where we got to go with it. But it's a bunch of red tape. It's just a bunch of nonsense, actually. But this is the world we live in now, and hopefully when I'm, 50 or 60 or something, everybody will realize that, oh my God, the regulations were too much and we need to dial them back, because we can't even maintain our own waterways, so.
Okay. Any other things? Well, that's right. You give everybody a shot. Any of the last things you good?
I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Alan?
Okay. depending on where we want to start with.
Oh, sorry, Alan.
Just
kidding,
My time is up. So for financials and whatnot, we decide we need to know the area that we are contained to. How far south do we go down to Green Key, or are we north of Green Key to Durney Key? How far north are we? Do we go to Cow Key, or do we go a little further north up to where the Salt Spring State Park is? Define our area. We know the river. We know out front there. Define what we need to, where we want to focus and get actions on. What value there, it needs to be dredged properly, and you can get a radial current. Permits, we get a joint permit, costs $2,000 to apply from DEP. We're going to need to do that. That has to happen. Once we have a joint permit in place, we have to have a focus for our areas like we've mentioned. What do we want to focus? Have our area, get a permit, show what we would like to get done, do the pieces. We can break it down in pieces at a time, all inclusive under that permit. This way we can continuously move on it without having to reapply. I've also applied different things. There's a Beaches, Inlets, and Ports program for funding that's funded now. It's up to $18 million a year. That's state funding, direct funding. We have the Coastal Barrier Resource Act. We're Section 4. We're funded at $2 billion annually. It's direct funding again. If you have a permit, if you have a plan in place, if you have everything approved, then you take it to them. You get you have to go for a consultation, and you have to do this with DEP as well. We want to do these consultations. We want to have our plan together. We have our plan together. Go to DEP, get our consultation, and get our permit. We have that in place. We can then bring this all to the city council. Say, this is what we need to do. They're probably going to say, okay, go get the permit. We'll do that. But we can't. It sounds like we can't do these things, but these are things that we have to bring to the city and say, this is what we need to do, and then get somebody to do it. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I've given each of you guys, just pass this out. This is something for the city right here, and it goes different sections. Yes.
Time. Watch your time.
Okay. So anyway, we're there's a lot that needs to be done, and we all have a good idea of the waterways. And we just have to communicate together, come up with a good plan, and bring it to the city so that the city can say yes, and then say, go get it. And then if we can do it, we can do it. If it's something we can't take action on, how are we going to take action? Because I'm all game for hiring out the private contractors. I'll get the money. You need $10 million? Let's private contractors. Good paying jobs. We're talking this is economic engines for our community. Huge economic engine that is handled properly.
Ronnie?
Well, being on the Port Authority board for well over 10 years, actually started back before the BP oil spill when the money came in, the funds for that. The number one issue has always been the money. Chasing grants. We did surveys back when nobody wanted to be assessed on their property for dredging their canals, so that went away. And we looked into grant money. Some money came in from BP. I think they spent some of it on certain canals. We've done a lot of research, and over the years, we've come up with some very good projects. One of the best ones we presented to the council a few years ago was the one from Crystal River, where they did their whole mitigation and water quality. The whole presentation, we brought it here. I think they spent as the city, $500,000 to $800,000 and got anywhere between $16 and $18 million in grant money, all through Audubon societies, the manatee groups, everything, because it's all about the quality of the water, replacing the seabeds. The dredging word is a bad word. Environmentalists hate it. So it's all about water quality, and they went that route. And I'm sure we could probably find that gentleman and bring him back who did the Crystal River project, because that is exactly what you're looking at right here. And the money's there. He says there's plenty of money, and you can go up to Crystal River and see how all the sludge was cleaned up in their canals, and everything is doing great. So I'm looking forward to working on this, and hopefully we can finally get something going.
Cool.
That's it.
Linda?
I got real excited when you brought your projects, when I was sitting in the audience years ago, when you did the first presentation about the water quality. Having lived here for 37 years, it's real important, the water quality and maintaining our shorelines. And that's why I wanted to sit on here. I know I'm not a boating expert by any stretch of the imagination, so I am never going to claim that. But I enjoy the water, and I think it's very important for our community to maintain the mangroves and the fish and all our shorelines, and I want to maintain that. So I'm looking forward to working with the committee and learning a lot more and hopefully helping. That's all. Thank you.
So from a starting point, I might take a little bit of a different swing at this. Listening to Devin's issues, and it's not different than what you hear a lot of people talking about. You got people with all different kinds of things on the water, and particularly with our canals. But you got stormwater runoff and drainage, and I remember Matt saying one of the first times I sat down with him, he's been fascinated to learn about how you've got drainage coming from here that goes here and it doesn't seem to actually end up anywhere, right? Or you've got things that are obvious that need to be fixed, but you fix that and you break something else that was done 40 years ago. And so I think we need to start with figuring out where we want to be, right? I know the project, the committee's title has 2020, 21, 25, maybe not quite that far out, but where do we want to end up? And what do we want this area to look like? And then we can start figuring out what pieces of the puzzle we need to put together to get to that point, right? Because we can talk about dredging, but dredging your canal may break something else, right? It may make something else worse if we don't really have a clear understanding of that. My brain says first place we go is to the resiliency group with Pasco County and say, what does your plan say that you wanted to do with this area, right? And does it match up with what residents here want us to do and what we think needs to be done? And then are there pieces of that are immediately actionable, like dredging or working village bayou or stuff around the river on either side on how it's draining, with the mangroves out front? Are there immediately actionable things that we can work with the county and build off of that plan to go and do? Or is their plan so vague that we've got to create something from scratch, right? And I don't think we know that at this point. And trying to figure out, okay, funding for the wrong thing at this point. So I think we've got to at least know where we want to plant our flag, and what we want things to look like. And then we can start figuring out, okay, who's going to take which piece and go chase that. So I just think that first meeting with the county, if it means bringing them in here and one or two of us go there and prep them and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. We'd really like to understand how we fit and how we can work together. And then we go from there. So that would be my recommendation from a starting point, is to figure out what we want it to look like, and then we can figure out the puzzle pieces to get there.
Well, I'll jump in. I think along with all of the years that we've been looking at this, I think the biggest thing that I'd always ask the question of is, what do we want to do? There's lots of things that could be done, but what are the things that we need to do? And is it dredging? Is it seagrass? Is it oysters? Is it mangroves? What is it? So I think from all the big dollars that are being spent, a funding perspective, I don't know if you just saw, but the Texas coast just got $32 billion for the Port of Houston. So where Louisiana was huge after Katrina, this dwarfs it completely. And they're doing a massive effort there. And but they've created a vision of what it needs to look like. They got the right resources together to say, to paint a picture, if you will, of what our view of Houston was. I would submit we need to do the same thing for Port Richey. We have to come up with that vision. Yeah, there's money here, there's money there, we can do this, we can do that, but we need to look at it in a cohesive fashion so everything works together. So how do we do that? I think is the big challenge that I see, and where I believe I would highly encourage us to start. Does it mean, do we go raise the roads like Miami did? Do we redo the stormwater system to make sure we don't get flooded from the county? Do we start raising all the houses? I don't know where to start. All of those things are potential possibilities. But what one is the right one today versus 5 years or 10 years? That's what we need to figure out. Alan brought up partners and who we need to work with and geography. I'm always a big think big or go home kind of guy. So we're small, and we know that there's lots of property around us. For example, the state park is 6,000 acres. Audubon has a big chunk south of us, Pasco County does as well. I would say we look to reach out with those as an immediate for partnering with. We want to work with them. We'd like them to potentially come to our meetings as a cooperative partner, either adjunct or I don't care what we call it. But let's bring them in. Let's get the biggest geography that we can. And those are easy because they're state level and they're county level and they're with Audubon, they're national level. So engaging with those kinds of people, I think, are the right people and they have the right resources to help us along. So those are a couple of things that come to my pea brain to kind of get us started. So let me do this. Can we do a minute or 90 seconds? Would anybody like to talk from the audience? Why don't we do that? All right. Why don't we go ahead and give them a 90 seconds and then we'll go from there.
Supposed to have 3 minutes.
Give him 3 minutes. Give him 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Appreciate you, Carl. I'll be Bob Hubbard, 7515 Grand Boulevard. Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Hope you guys get all the answers that we need and all our problems solved. So it's all on you guys' shoulders. Thank you very much. We obviously been talking about, I've lived here since 1983, dredging, and as Carl said, we should refer to cleaning out our waterways or maintaining our waterways. It's already been dredged. We just need to maintain it and clean it out. We've had clean outs in this river this year, and some years not too long ago with equipment that's not that expensive. And some of that was done with rent-a-barge. And you can get a barge with spuds. You can put an excavator or a backhoe on that, and you can get that in a mule barge with a push boat that can push the excavator barge and the mule barge to wherever you need this material taken. You can rent this equipment for about 2 months for around $50,000, $60,000. 2 months will clean out all of our canals. Should anyway. I mean, you can get a lot done, a lot done. Important thing about this is also two things. You can get it done, you can start right away on this. You can get a permit and start on this right away because I think the city can come up with some money to get that started. And that would alleviate a lot of citizens' problems that have boats. And they've been screaming for it, and I've also been screaming for it. I can get out usually, but there's a lot of people that can't, and they need help, and they need to get this done, and it need to be alleviated. I don't think we're going to be able to get done this boating season, but hopefully we can get started on this so they can enjoy spring next year. And this is one option I'd just like for everybody to look at. The barge has spuds on it. It can be operated with the backhoe or the excavator. You can move it around. It can fit into canals nicely, even the small canals, which is important. I'd like to compare that with a commercial professional operation to see what the cost difference is. And it probably would be a little cheaper if we did it. They offer professionals that will show you how it's done. They can also furnish operators if we have a citizen. We got people in the city that work for us that could probably operate it. They can't make them do it, but it does pay. I believe we could find it would pay extra for it's beyond the scope of what they were hired for. So they could probably get paid bonus money to operate that equipment. It still would probably be cheaper than hiring someone to operate it, but still we could do either one. That should be looked into. The material that was taken out of this river also, which is important to DEP, is that it's been proven it's good and it's not contaminated. No arsenic, Nothing bad with it. This could be used to restore Durney Key. Durney Key is a valuable asset to us for a couple different reasons. I know it's a recreational area, which is good, and citizens use it, and it should be restored. But it's also a barrier from a severe storm that may come in. It prevents a lot of, it'll slow down tidal surge, slow down waves. It'll help preserve our waterfront and the shoreline. Durney Key serves a lot of purposes, and I think it should be restored. It also creates a lot of habitat for wildlife for those people concerned
Just
about
a
that.
quick clarification. Are you talking about a maintenance dredge?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
You don't need to dredge down 10 feet.
Understand.
You need to clean it out, and it should be maintained on a fairly regular basis, 4, 5, 6 years. And you do that, you'll save the city a lot of money and the citizens a lot of heartache, and also keep the property values up. So this is important, and I think this is something we should look into and compare. And as I said, this is something that we could start on right away if we can get a permit from DEP. If someone like Devin wants to get his own equipment under that permit and dredge his waterways out, I don't think we should stop him, as long as it's done safely and it's done the way the company recommends it be done.
Okay. All right.
So that's 3 minutes, I believe.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Appreciate you guys.
Anybody else? Dave?
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. And thanks again for all of your time here to kind of put this problem to rest. I think you all have some great ideas, great starting point. But essentially, we got to, put the rope around, okay, what it is that we're working on, boil it down to those projects that have viability, and then essentially try to prioritize that and say, what do you think we can get done? One of the things that we, as a smaller city, have smaller projects, and potentially we can look at getting partners with Swift Mud, Pasco County, those other agencies that we could essentially leverage some of that. Audubon, you mentioned that. Audubon's got a big place right at the mouth of the river. And Durney Key, like Captain Bob said, I think that is a dredge site, disposal site. But whether or not we can address putting the materials that come out of our canals and stuff at that site, that's another story. Certainly, we're trying to get a jump start on things. There's a lot of things circling right now, but essentially, I think Carl's got the idea of let's put the vision together here and then start fleshing out that skeleton and say, okay, what is it we can kind of focus on and move forward with? Stormwater is a big issue. It comes right out of my canal from residents off of 19 right on down into that bayou area and then underneath the road and deposits in the canal. So I've been here 6 years, been trying to get some traction on this, and hopefully you guys are the ladies, the ones to get the project kicked off, and I'm willing to help as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, bring it back. Any other thoughts from folks on here along that line before we wrap up as far as that piece?
It was really good discussion. We got some good ideas from overlooking over the big picture. I work with the county, and I'm trying to get this through. It's the coastal for our entire 20-something miles coastline. But within that is the city. And I saw the city wanting to make some moves. I said, I want to be part of that. So anywhere I can be a help, I can kind of coordinate. You can give us as a hint what will work, like you say, as a joining function, so we can grab assistance from other places and say, come on board, get more done. We get 2 for 1, let's do 2 for 1. If we're going to use, we can get our permit for dredging here, but we need to increase our spoil island, or we need to build a beach. Let's use these clean spoils over here, save money, get a big bang for our buck, but have everybody helping us.
I think a lot of these things are exciting as far as the possibilities. It's a matter of how do we have just a few variables that we can deal with to get people on board quickly. If we have a lot of variables, I don't know how we get multiple entities that we have to work and push on to get them in agreement with what needs to be done too. Maybe if there's a thread that we could pull on, maybe it has to do with stormwater. I know the county's going through an effort with stormwater. I know the stormwater's adversely impacted our canals. I don't think there's one canal that hasn't been negatively impacted. They've got a project that's not supposed to be completed till 25. Level of detail that is, I'm not sure. But if we look at stormwater, for example, then we can figure out how that impacts the waterways and the water quality and those types of things. But there's a thread that we can pull in to try to run that course. And I'm sure there'll be other branches that go off of it. I'm not sure what that. So, for example, if we find that, dredging here, then we've got to put the spoil somewhere. Does it go to an island? Does it go somewhere? Who knows? But these other things will get pulled in once we start walking this one path. Right. I haven't given enough thought to say we can work on this path or that path or the other path. The only thought I did give was when I had thought about this earlier was doing some type of outreach to other entities, the county being one. There may be stuff at Swift Mud. We could do that immediately as far as finding who the right people are to go have those conversations and learn what we can and bring that back to the table. So that's one thought. The other thing that kind of goes something else one or more of us could do is, what does the city need? Where are problems that maybe we have road flooding? And part of this thought is, what kind of quick wins could we get? So if we knew where some of the critical pains were, we know we should be maybe looking at that process first, potentially. So kind of getting with the city and saying, okay, what are those things around this arena that make sense there? And then the other area is that I struggled with for a while is restoration is a big thing. I don't even know what restoration means. I hear that we've got stuff has changed. It's different from this reason or that. I need to have more sawgrass. I need to have more of this or more. I don't know what the right answer is. How do I promote the fisheries? How do I promote wildlife? What are the things that I need to do? And do I restore it to 1700 or do I restore it to 1950? I have no clue. So I assume there's people that we could engage with that understand what are those things that we can do that gets us the biggest bang for the buck, that helps the fisheries, that helps the water, that helps the clarity, it helps all of those things. So that's kind of the third component or the third leg that I figured maybe a group of us could handle if we kept it relatively simple and fold these things into that. The outreach, what does the city need? What's the right thing to do?
I would add one thing to the outreach. One place where the Port Authority, when we were doing the project 3 or 4 years ago, one place where we ran into a stumble. We didn't have good contacts with some of the other municipalities that were doing this work, and they just didn't return our phone calls. And so, I don't know if it's appropriate, but I would love to, at some point, say who in the city would be the right people to talk to, Homosassa and Crystal River, and just say, you guys just undertook projects that are very similar, at least in scope, to what we're talking about doing. What are, lessons learned? What do you wish you had done sooner? Did you do things out of order, right? Did you start with one thing and you needed to start with something else and that slowed you down? What were your sources of funding? That kind of thing. So that I think that's one of those areas from an outreach standpoint that this committee might not be the right folks. It might be within the city to do that.
Okay.
I think that there's so much growth in Florida that it's almost inevitable that we do get like a $30-something billion gift to the state, where the federal government comes in and really drops some money here to clean up our waterways. We're a little municipality. We're very tiny, and we're getting dumped on, left and right by everybody around us, because we're, a waterfront community in giant Pasco County. I think it was like the 5th fastest growing county in the nation. I mean, there's something to be said, and those properties aren't percolating anymore because there's giant buildings on them and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with development. That's fine. But the water is going somewhere, and it's at an increased velocity coming out of the river, and it's depositing everywhere. What Bob said about doing like a more homegrown approach, I like those ideas. I tend to, because I'm more of a, kind of a mover and shaker. I just like to do stuff, I like that idea, but I also like a bigger picture idea. I'm not sure if we can actually do smaller projects, or at least, I think we have a couple $100,000 set aside by the council from Penny for Pasco or whatever to us to be able to do something with. But at least if we were able to identify very troubled areas in the city, just at a minimum, let's do a bigger approach, but let's also do a more homegrown approach if possible. I got a $100,000 excavator that I bought. It's brand new. It's like we'll stick it on a barge. I'll watch it rust. It's fine. Whatever. We'll figure it out. But if we could at least get permitting in the finger canals, over by me, and just some other really bottleneck areas where we could potentially just dig them out and just do a maintenance dredge on them, really, and just clean them out. I think that would probably help and be a little easier than these bigger picture things, because I'm not even sure if we can even lobby and get the results we need. I almost feel like this is one of these things where when the federal government is ready, they're going to act, because they realize that there's such a voting base here and people are wanting to move here and there's so much economic pressure here. Or maybe when we get higher value homes to be built, where the old cracker boxes get ripped down and new ones get built, and eventually it all kind of just comes up and we get the funding to dredge it out. But I think a homegrown approach would probably be a good idea, and I don't know what avenue we could take for that, but I think maybe a multifaceted approach would be wonderful, because we may not even get the big one. It might be a dream shot, but if we can still do and maybe leverage a couple $100,000, maybe we could get something out of that that's reasonable. And I know getting people from the city to work on it, there's longshoremen's workers' comp, it's like ridiculous. That's a whole complicated thing. But I'm sure there's something we could do, maybe volunteers. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
A lot of the information that Devin was asking for, as far as the schematics of the canals and the surveys, that was all done. I don't know where the city keeps all the paperwork from going back 10 years, but all that was done. The city had it. Talking about Dirty Key, we had aerial photos of what it was back in the when they first built it and how big it was, because that was one of the ideas, to take the spoil and put it back on Dirty Key, to just put Dirty Key back to its original size, put riprap around it, and it'd be a big, nice island for people to go to, but also just restore it back to what it was. All that information was given to the city. I don't know if they have the files, but all that you're asking for was already done. And it was done to the point where that you could go as a citizen, get those permits at the time, because everything was done, and go dig like you wanted to do. So I don't know where that information is at, if it's still around, but it was all done.
That's going to be critical.
I'm sure it's still around. I don't think they throw anything out in
Sure.
some place.
You can do a FOIA request too from DEP or whatever too. That's another thing too. Maybe to compile all of the local permits that were pulled by DEP and stuff and put them on a central website and database, just so anybody who moves into the city from wherever, they buy the house, they realize, oh my God, I'm in a mud canal. This sucks. They get mobilized onto this thing, like I did. And now I'm here sitting in this chair and going, I want to get this done. but I want all the resources. So if we're able to do that, knowledge is power, and without that, I can't do what I'm trying to do. I could get it. It's just a lot of legwork. They don't only want all the points. I paid to get all the topographicals done on it, but they want a cross section.
That was done too.
Right, but it doesn't even matter. It's arbitrary because you already know what it is. They just want it in a different
I'm
format.
just saying that was all done. It was to the point, wasn't it, Carl?
Yeah.
Where that they were
Yeah,
ready
makes
to go, and then the permits sat there, and then it got to the point where they expired. But
Yeah.
all that work was done.
Well, why don't we do this? Let me throw this out as far as call it quick hit projects or something that is a potential to get our arms around, get all the pieces together. Is that something that, say, Devin, you want to look into? What are
I-
those quick hit type efforts?
I think probably to identify all the easy things, the low hanging fruit that like Dave's Canal, that giant pile of crap there, and all that stuff that we need. We could go in there, dig that out. It's probably a couple 100 yards. We have a DMA site. I think we should get that DMA, right? DMA. site?
PMMA.
We could get the spoils in there already tested, get them moved, sell it because it's dirt. People are paying $5 a yard for dirt. We could get rid of that in 2 seconds and then fill it up again.
Well, I think that's a good path to walk. All right. So we have to, in that the permits have expired, we have to find out what would be involved to reactivate.
Sure.
Because essentially they were a maintenance bridge. That's all it was. There was no over dredging.
Maintenance.
Other
Their
than
maintenance permits.
other than what the DEP allowed.
Yeah.
So find out what it would take to reactivate those, and find out what potentially is there. New information for me is that the county supposedly owns the canals. I don't know if that's true.
They do.
I don't know if that's
If
true.
you go on the website,
They do.
just click on them. They do.
No, I understand what's on the website, but I've seen stuff on the website that's not. If you understand how the state of Florida GIS gets built,
Oh, jeez.
So let me just say that if you look there on the canals that are Twist,
Yep.
Blue Point, those four.
Yeah.
So they all show that they're owned by the county.
yes,
The county owns 3 of the 4. Yes. The fourth one, which is the furthest one to the north, is actually owned by the Florida Sheriff's Trust Foundation or something like that, which doesn't show up when you click on it. If you use the Pasco mapper, it shows that it's owned by the county facilities. But the county, we met with the county to try to get an understanding of the ownership, and we still haven't gotten from them what the process would be if we wanted to, if we wanted to do something there. We were trying to work with them to understand what they would require of us. They said that they don't own that one, and they provided to us the deed for that, which is actually the Florida Sheriff's Trust Association, which is just really weird to me that that's who would own it. But
Should we try to get those transferred back into?
well, I think the fundamental question is because you go in that,
Yeah.
and if there's petroleum runoff and there's contaminated soils, even if on the surface, it becomes an issue.
Sure.
So all of those things, that's a potential project. All of these things can raise their head, but they all have to be dealt with. I just question, in all my years down here, I'm not aware of anything that would have legislated that. So I know it's on the property appraiser's site. I just question, because I've had some other things through state of Florida GIS system. It comes down to the county. They accept it without any question, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. So I would just, along that line, to fully understand, would be to find the documentation that legitimately throws it to the county, or given our charter as a municipality says, that's not binding. I don't know. So that's all I say. There's some due diligence to run that thread. But we pull on the thread for the canal, and let's see what goes with it. I'm all over that, if that's one you want to run.
Not just my canal. I mean, I'm.
No. But I mean, to run the process as far that we're just discussing.
This is so difficult though, because like if I want to go hang out with you, spend a day on the boat and talk about this, how do you, by the way, how do you do that?
You can do a meeting.
Right, but what if we want to go out and actually take a look at it ourselves? We want to hop on a skiff and say at low tide and go, wow, that is a giant oyster bar. We're not allowed to do that.
You can go look at it.
Can't talk about it, right?
You can come back
So
and then
bring
you
it back
can
to
go
our
over it.
meeting. You can go do that on your own and bring us.
But we could go together on the boat, take pictures of it.
Do all the
let's
stuff.
go
we
look at
just can't
these
discuss
four
it.
canals
Can't
and then
talk.
come back and
Right.
have it
It's so
projected out
crazy,
and then
man.
talk about it.
I understand it at a fundamental level, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's very shackling.
Now, when I'm sitting over here, though, and I'm just on the outside hearing this. We're talking canals. I hear that this is real important. So, just from what I've seen, from my looking at things, all of those drainage canals, they do need attention, serious attention. But something that's key to enhancing them working properly is Miller's Bayou. That's a huge key.
Yep.
But you go to the small ones, and they'll connect. And if you get the right permit, like you get these permits redone, but it may not be the all-encompassing JCP. And if you get that one, you'll get these smaller ones plus the overarching.
They had the permits
Right.
from Miller Bayou too.
Right.
So if we can
They
get
had
them
them
all,
all.
that's
And
the package,
I think-
and that's not going all over the place.
That's a
just
big
keeping
problem.
it
That's a
in
big,
small areas.
that's a
What
big
they
thing.
did was they did the so far out from the seawall.
Right.
Right.
Off the people's docks, not the whole middle.
Right.
Just around so that people could come out from the canals and drive around and get out.
Right.
And then out in front of Waterfront Park in Hooters and all that.
Very shallow there.
All that was permitted.
Right, and
Yeah.
I wasn't, I think they put it out to bid, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the bid came back $2 or $3 million. This was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
And that's why those
Not
permits
longer.
expired. Yeah,
Yeah.
not longer.
Right.
So that's why those permits expired, because
Right.
we didn't, the city, I was sitting out there, I was not up here.
Right.
That's why those permits expired, was because the city didn't have $3 or $4 million to dredge just Miller's Bayou.
Right.
I mean, nobody, nobody just ignored the $667,000 and said, well, we're not going to do anything. They just didn't have enough money to finish the project, unfortunately.
That's what made Crystal River and what Homosassa are doing so attractive. Is they weren't talking about dredging, but what they were doing was going into all these canals, cleaning all of that stuff out, replanting seagrass, and at that point you're asking for grant money for
Right.
restoration, resiliency, and an environmentally friendly thing. And dredging doesn't sound
Yes, exactly.
And that's what
Which is crazy.
The same thing.
Which is crazy.
Right.
It's how you're back.
So I want to come back to Alan's point here, because he's done a lot of work around the Miller's Bayou and the circulation and stuff. I guess one of the things I would like to do is understand that more. I don't have an understanding of that. You've talked about the shorewise currents as well.
Right.
I don't have an understanding of that. So one of the things that would help me is to better understand that and the details behind it, because for all my boating offshore, so I'd like to learn about that so I can. And part of my intent here is to say, okay, if we're doing something here, it has to connect to this and it has to connect to that. If we can't find the connection, we either don't have to do it or we have to build a connection that doesn't exist. Because if I'm going to go to Governor DeSantis and say I need $17 million for all of this, whatever, this connects to that connects to this, and this is why we need this piece first. I just need $1 million to get this done. Yeah, there's a grander project out there, all right, but I need $1 million to get this started, and here's the reasons why. All right, so that would help me, at least as far as that, to get clarity as far as what's the basis of that.
Sure.
Kind of stuff. And I think I heard, Chris, you're interested in trying to reach out to Mark at the county and some of those things. And there's probably some others too,
Right,
that we could do just as a start. And I think it just keep us informed.
Could
Linda?
I also ask that, can we ask the city to come up with, what is the actual process for the dredging? What licenses, permits EPA, who do we need to contact? That whole, you have to do this first, this second, this third before we even get down there. Because, I mean, I don't think it's that easy as it would be great to just put a backhoe on a barge, but I don't think it's that easy.
It's a
But
process.
So I would like the city to give us how this has to be done, step 1, 2, 3, 4, before we can get to any stage. And can we do what he suggested, or it doesn't have to be a professional entity per the government? So if I could ask Matt if that would be possible.
We have already started that.
I'm sorry.
We already started that.
Oh, well, good job.
And there's multiple ways to fund that type of thing. too.
Let me just say, going back about the permits. So in 2008, the city got a permit through Army Corps in the state to do the dredging, what I think you're talking about. In 2013 is when it expired. I have the hard copy. Well, I have a hard copy of the permit, but it's almost useless because it's a hard copy. It was, you know, they didn't do a very good job of copying. Let's put it that way. So somewhere there is an electronic version of this that I'm going to try to find. Now the city did do dredging, which resulted in the spoils going to the DMMA site. That one I can't find that permit yet. They had to have a permit. You have it?
I may have.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't find one. That's not to say that it's not here somewhere, but I'm trying to get that one to understand what that permit was. Let me also say in all this that, you know, there are communities out there that do annually do dredging, maintenance dredging for their canals. One that comes to mind is Cape Coral. And you know, I think they actually have an annual program. They have a 10-year I believe a 10-year permit through Army Corps in the state of Florida that allows them to do it. They do some of it themselves. They do some of it contracting out. Some of it's funded through their stormwater utility. Some of it's funded other places, which I still don't understand, which might be a good, again, you know, my intention is to reach out to them to get an understanding of how they go about what they do and why they did it and all those different things that, you know, I'll bring back to you as well.
Well, I think this is I think we certainly have interest in it. So understanding what all the pieces are and what needs to be done today, the permits carried longer than that period of time. And there were extensions, and then there was even the last iteration that had to do with the DMMA site was actually part of the original permit. So there was not a new permit, but in that it's completely lapsed now. There's probably still some sweet talking that may be able to be done with the Corps, but again, that has to be pursued.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about it here,
Right.
Yeah.
but it's just a thread. Let's run that thread and see where it takes us, and then we can get
A lot of
some
work.
traction.
Yeah, he gets that threat, the Army Corps that you mentioned. He has an additional $10 million in his back pocket every year just to do projects like this.
The monies, I think, are in some ways the least of our problems. I think the biggest problem is figuring out what needs to be done first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Those things are going to be the hard part. So I think I've got 3 down, sort of. Ronnie, Linda, things come to mind that you're interested in trying to run down per se that comes to mind. You mentioned Ronnie kind of choose where we want to spend our dollars on, you know, kind of prioritizing. How about maybe with the city as far as finding out what their priorities are, things like that? Is where to stormwater, where to utilities, where to roads, where to just kind of getting that understanding in to kind of and bring back to the table what the city sees as being most important, so we can kind of line up with the community and with the committee what things are most important. Does that seem to be a viable path?
So you want to see where the city wants to start first?
Yeah.
We'll start on land and then work our way to the shore?
I don't know. But that's is it big? Is it smaller than a bread box? What does it look like? I have no clue. So that would be a start to at least understand. So we're working in harmony across the board on whatever we do. So be it externally on quick win projects, what's kind of the vision of where we need to be as far as what do we restore to, and then what's important. So
Let me also add the one member of the committee that's sitting in my place is Daryl Rose, who is our Public Works and Utilities Director.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I thought he would be very good to be on this is a lot of those drainage, stormwater issues, he's very fluent in right now.
Okay.
And can help, again, provide a lot of insight. Some of the things you just said, what are the priorities? Where are the issues that we're experiencing? I mean, he and I can easily put on the map all those issues for you.
I think that would be good. I think that kind of goes in line.
Yep.
Linda, is there a niche that you would like to? I threw out suggestions. Nobody threw it back at me, so I figured I should start. You want to work with Ronnie as far as some of the city stuff?
Sure, that's
Because
fine.
both.
Well,
I mean,
we
you don't have
can't
to,
really, but
but I mean,
yes.
getting the information
Yes.
because the city's got a lot of.
We'll both get a list, how's that, and we can bring it back and compare it while we're sitting here at the meeting and go, because he'll probably get something
Okay.
different than I will.
And Ashley, as far as like email contacts and information, can you make sure that we all have that? Because we can certainly share information as we get it.
You can't share with one another. You can share with me, and I can disperse, but you cannot email each other directly. No,
Just go with it.
sunshine.
It's so fun, isn't
Just
it?
go with it.
I am your distribution center for information for this committee.
So you're going to send it back out?
Correct. So if there's something that you want,
Or the other option is, depending upon what it is, we can place it on the
Yes.
website where you would have access to it.
I'm just thinking working information as far as this is what I found as a FYI kind of thing.
you can send it both to Matt and I, and if it's something that you would like to discuss further in length, it can be added to the agenda, or if it's just a contact or something like that, it can be added to that that drop page for everybody as well, or if it's something directly, we can discuss.
Okay.
But yes, no emailing each other directly when it comes to this committee.
Who's going to get the way
Okay.
the waterways are flowing difficult? Who's going to get the canals? Because that's who I want to talk to.
I'm sorry, Alan.
Somebody.
I was going to get with the city. Daryl Rose, is that who you
Yes.
said? I guess meet with him.
Because
Find out what the
He's
problem
actually
is.
because
a member of the committee, so he'll be at the next meeting.
I talked to him then, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
if I could have vision on that, then I could do the currents for you and have the currents show you how all these different things reflect on the currents, whether you need directional radio
Okay.
or how we can make it work. So we can't communicate now. So send it to Ashley. And when I see Ashley,
Yeah, it's just got to be through. It's got to be
I'll send
through.
Ashley back the information. This is how we can fix this. The information you just gathered, I've now gathered it. Here's how it works.
I think this kind of begs the question where I was coming from is that from a restoration standpoint, those didn't exist. So the bayou was the bayou. So this is the part that I don't understand exactly. So if we've corrupted things as far as with the drainage, do we need a whole different types of drainage systems than we've used historically?
I don't.
So that's why I'm this.
Yeah, it's more
chicken-
than likely not, because your bayous and your everything that's been set up on this historically was set on original swales, so that you can go back to historical and say, oh, we just work with Mother Nature. We've just encouraged it to work with our population.
And this is the part I want to learn about. Cool. Okay. Meeting next. Timeframes.
Yeah.
What's
And let me just throw out there, it'd be
Yep.
really good if we could pick a date that, we follow that going forward. So, from the standpoint of getting agendas and because what happens if we start we'll pick a date later on, then it's a matter of trying to match up all your calendars then, and it's a nightmare. And I think that's something that we would highly recommend getting a date that makes sense keeping it off, council meeting, planning commission meeting nights. And
Well,
things like
along that line, say we want to meet with another party, is there a day that would work better for saying, instead of doing a 6 o'clock, which would be a normal standing meeting, we do a 2 o'clock because we want DEP to come in? Because they're working. I would hate to have people that are working and they can't get here because, to me, it's foolish. At least we're relatively local. So from a particular day stand, I know second and fourth Tuesdays are bad.
Second, fourth, first, and third. Filling up fast.
Okay, so is there a better time than not for people? I'll just throw it out, Ashley, and to the committee, as far as a particular day. Being retired, I don't care
I'm
too
flexible.
much, but it's just,
Early in the week's better than late in the week, so Monday works as good as any other day.
okay. Mondays are good.
Monday at 6.
Monday 6 is a standard.
Do you want to keep it the second Monday of the month? Like you've started the second Monday of the month.
There is no wrong answer to this unless somebody's got something.
Sure.
6
Fine.
o'clock.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you guys have someone that you are wanting to come in and speak, we will know ahead of time, and that way I can
Right.
know quorum and everything.
Right.
The second Monday of next month is Columbus Day.
Is what?
Columbus Day.
Columbus
We're
Day.
not closed.
We're not close.
Jesus.
But I think,
Columbus Day.
if we choose the day, if Ronnie can't be here, Ronnie's not there that day.
Right.
Or whatever, we've got critical mass to be able to move forward, but choosing that. So as a start, for now, how's that next Monday? That would be in October.
Yep.
So it would, moving forward, it would be the second Monday of every month at 6 o'clock.
I guess I'm looking for, I'm not sure everybody's.
There's 10 paid holidays in the federal calendar, and they're all 90% of times on a Monday, sometimes on a Friday, and Columbus Day is one of those days.
Fair. Is 6 o'clock a good time? And I'm looking more towards it this way.
I'm here.
6 o'clock is good? Good. All right, 6 o'clock it is next
October 14th
October 14th.
is your next meeting.
And we will do what we need to do. And then what I will do is give some thought to what we've talked about, try to put some ideas together and bring that in as far as quick wins that we can potentially go after, that type of thing, or just get a laundry list of along that and then go from there.
And I'll send everybody a calendar invite moving forward so that you guys have them as well.
Okay. Okay. Alan, any last thoughts?
No, you just wanted me to do the currents, right?
Yeah, I think that would help me. I mean,
How we flow with the waterways.
good. Honey?
Chris?
Yep.
I think we're good.
All right, that's all I have for tonight. And we'll call the meeting adjourned. May I have a
I second that.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to, okay.
That's okay.
all in favor?